taken to Madison for an autopsy, while murder investigators are on the scene here in Portage. State Crime Lab investigators arrived at the prison late this morning for a murder investigation. Officials say Dahmer was found in a staff bathroom off the gym, severely beaten on the head.
Both patients, Jeffrey being the first, they both had trauma to the face. It looked like it was a lot of blood.
Rescue workers say Dahmer left the prison alive but died a short time later at a Portage hospital. For those who desperately tried to save the life of the serial killer, this all started as a routine call, but ended as one they'll never forget.
It's just starting to set in now. I didn't realize it was him until after he was unloaded at the hospital. It was the first I realized who it was.
Some of the emergency workers say they didn't recognize their patient at first and say it is yet to sink in.
Professional people had to do a job that was required of them, and they did it. And I guess who it is and what it is doesn't really matter at that point in time.
Prison authorities say Dahmer had been working with the suspect, identified only as a murderer from Milwaukee County, for about the past 3 weeks with no prior incidences. Mitch.
Tony, how much freedom did Dahmer have to roam around with the other prison population without close supervision by the guards?
Well, he was under watch by the guards just like any other inmate. He was among the general population. He had said that didn't bother him, and prison officials even today say they felt he was at no risk, any more risk than any of the other inmates when he was among the general population. Now, he had been attacked one other time while he was here at the Portage facility. Prison officials in Madison say they don't feel that was related at all to this incident today.
All right, Tony, thank you. Tony Thomas reporting live from the Columbia Correctional Facility. Well, while Dahmer died from the attack, the other injured inmate is hospitalized.
Emergency crews brought convicted murderer Jesse Anderson to UW Hospital in Madison. That is where our Wendy Teese is standing by at this hour. Wendy, what is the condition there tonight of Jesse Anderson?
Pam, Anderson is listed in critical condition tonight. Department of Corrections officials say, like Dahmer, he sustained multiple head injuries. Anderson was brought into the UW by ambulance late this morning. He's been in the Columbia County Correctional Facility since 1992 when he was convicted in the murder of his wife, Barbara. You may remember the case. She was stabbed 21 times in the face and upper body at a Milwaukee restaurant. Anderson blamed the attack on two men, but prosecutors proved Anderson masterminded the murder. Again, officials report Jesse Anderson is listed in critical condition tonight after a prison attack. His mother and sister are here in Madison by his side.
Wendy, do we know much about the nature of Anderson's injuries?
Pam, when he was discovered this morning, authorities say he was conscious, but since then he's drifted in and out of consciousness. Doctors have performed surgical procedures to remove swelling from his brain. Now, Anderson is 36 years old. He's sentenced to serve a life sentence in prison and won't be eligible for parole until he's 95.
Wendy Teese reporting live from UW Hospital. Thanks. Authorities think the suspect did act alone in the attack on Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer.
The suspect's name is not being released, but we do know he is from Milwaukee County, and he was convicted back in 1992 for first-degree intentional homicide. He won't be eligible for parole until the year 2032. Department of Corrections officials say they found blood on the suspect and a bloody broom handle found at the scene. But DOC Secretary Mike Sullivan says the broom handle was not necessarily the weapon.
If a person is in a state of rage and they attack someone, especially in a room that has tile walls and floors, just bashing their head into the wall or the floor, it would seem to me the wall or the floor is a sufficient weapon.
The suspect is a man who worked with Dahmer and Anderson in the gymnasium the last 3 weeks.
Sullivan says no one knew of any problems with those three before this morning, and he's not aware of any relation the suspect may have had with Dahmer or Anderson.
There have been a number of significant happenings in Dahmer's life since July of 1991.
That's back when authorities first removed dozens of body parts from Dahmer's Milwaukee apartment. Later the same month, officials in Ohio unearthed the remains of Dahmer's first victim, 18-year-old Stephen Mark Hicks.
In February, In 1992, Dahmer was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms for the murders of 15 people. Later that year, Dahmer was sentenced in the 1978 death of Stephen Mark Hicks.
In July of last year, Dahmer was attacked by an inmate wielding a disposable razor. He sustained a minor cut then, and prison authorities called the incident isolated. This year, Dateline NBC aired the first interview with the convicted murderer. 2 months later, he was baptized. And today, Jeffrey Dahmer dies at the age of 34. Some people are relishing the news of Dahmer's murder. Others express shock and surprise.
Andrea Novotny has more on what family members of Dahmer's victims are saying and how those who worked with the serial killer are assessing the news.
Jeffrey Dahmer tore families apart when he brutally took the lives of several young men in Milwaukee. But even those affected most by Dahmer when he was alive had a range of emotions when learning of his demise.
I feel that justice was done, because he's dead, but I don't feel sorry because he's dead.
And he killed him, now he got paid, he has to pay his crime.
I'm gonna talk for myself. They expect family members to be in an uproar. Yeah, I'm glad he's dead. Yeah, he deserved every bit. They should cut him up and whatever, just like he did to my brother. But that is not for us to say.
The man who represented Dahmer at his murder trial 3 years ago is not surprised. Gerald Boyle saw it coming.
I had predicted that he would either be killed or kill himself. He had a death wish as long as I have known him.
Madison attorney Stephen Eisenberg has been Dahmer's attorney on several civil cases since he's been incarcerated. Eisenberg says Dahmer was a marked man in prison.
The issue is it shouldn't happen in our society, in this state. People shouldn't get killed while they're in prison. I don't blame anybody for not mourning him. I think he was a very sick person.
But the man who prosecuted Dahmer cautions the public for giving his alleged killer too much credit. E. Michael McCann is concerned the perpetrator will gain financially.
I think that there would be some, certainly, who would perceive themselves as folk heroes. I would hope that whoever is involved in this slaying does not gain notoriety and celebrity.
Andrea Novotny, 15 News at 6.
Jeffrey Dahmer dead tonight at Portage Correctional Facility. Still to come on 15 News at 6, what David Spanbauer told police about the murder of Cora Jones.
Also, are suspects convicted before they get to court? We'll look at media coverage of crime in tonight's Wisconsin Close-Up.
Well, it wasn't a big one, but we got our first snow of the season 2 days into the record for a new first snowfall. And I'll tell you more about the forecast coming up in just a minute.
Closed captioning for 15 News is brought to you by American. Amazing place, amazing prices.
An Oshkosh man is charged with abducting, sexually assaulting, and killing 12-year-old Cora Jones.
53-year-old David Spanbauer told authorities he left his home September 5th with the intent to hunt and kill. Spanbauer says he saw Cora Jones riding her bike and forced her into his car with a knife. He says from the time he picked her up to the time she died was about 5 or 6 hours.
There was multiple homicidal trauma. Actually, that comes from Dr. Huntington's report, but it's confirmed by the statement by Mr. Spanbauer. There was some strangulation, and there was also stabbing.
Investigators say the Jones murder charges will likely be consolidated in a few weeks with murder and rape charges Spanbauer already faces in Appleton. A number of famous people have said any publicity is good publicity.
But what happens if the person thrust into the limelight is not famous and wants no part of the publicity? When it comes to criminal cases, people rarely have choices. In tonight's Wisconsin Close-Up, we look at the media's way of doing things and wonder, do we go too far? Adam Schrager and Gary Nelson have more on the trials by media.
How do you feel about it now?
He gets home and he gets death threats, and people call up, want to kill him.
Bill, do you know why he missed hit stop sign?
Scared, he's frightened, he's humiliated.
From February 15th, 1993 on, William Barman became a public figure. When he ran a stop sign and accidentally killed 3 people with his car that day, his life and character were splashed on television before he was ever charged.
I mean, I got no doubt the media had something to do here. And whether or not the police department and the DA's office reacted somehow to the pressure from the media to do something, we'll never know.
What we do know is media coverage of high-profile cases is growing. Look at O.J. Simpson. Look at Brent Moss. Look at Michael Sauter.
The suspect and the victim had a prior contact, may have knew each other, and it was certainly no type of random attack.
With those words, Madison police started a 24-hour drama which changed Michael Souter's life. No longer just a West Side resident, he was suddenly suspected of murder. Media outlets scrambled in order to find out about Michael Souter. The Capital Times focused on, quote, a very sick alcoholic.
We were curious about who was this suspect.
As people read that edition, Michael Souter was released, leaving the paper to analyze what it had done.
Our job in the media is to sort of hold up a mirror to what's happening out there in society, and I think we often get blamed for holding up that mirror. It's sort of the old kill the messenger syndrome.
Some media experts agree, saying you don't see the demand for that message decreasing.
Audiences are hardly blameless in all of this because there's obviously a considerable appetite out there among viewers and among readers for exactly the kinds of sensational information and details that are reported in these kinds of cases.
We, the jury, find the defendant, William P. Barman, not guilty of homicide.
And in the cases where juicy stories turn out to be false?
Certainly, there's never going to be a situation where mistakes aren't made, and there isn't going to be glamorized headlines involving a specific incident in the community. But I think from a general standpoint that lessons are being learned.
That comes as little consolation to the Michael Souters and William Barmans of the world, two Madison area men who found themselves on trial by media as well as the system. For Wisconsin Close-Up, Adam Schrager, 15 News at 6.
To address the issue of trial by media, Dave Zwiefel and his editorial staff at the Capital Times discussed the paper's coverage of Michael Souter. They're sticking by it, once again saying they regret Souter was wrongly charged. We missed the White House, or the white stuff, not the White House, but the white stuff this weekend.
We get a little more. We
well,
might have White
too.
Houses. Elmer's up next with the forecast. From our perch in the newsroom, we can see that the traffic on the Beltline is crawling.
That's true. We are getting a little heavier snow right here in the southern part of the state. Right now, I don't think we're going to have to use our shovels, but if you're going to drive later tonight, be extra careful out there. But now we do have an official snowfall. We've had a trace of snowfall, so this is 2 days now, longer than our old record. So now this is the latest we've ever had a snowfall in Madison. The old record was the 26th, which went back to 1902. We're at 30 right now with flurries, west wind at 18, but that gives us a wind chill of only 3 degrees. Barometer rising still low at 29.58. Afternoon readings, not necessarily the highs for the day because the highs were probably at midnight last night, but we had some 20s up north. We had the 33, still some snow, especially here in the southern part of the state. And here's how much snow we had last night. Just quickly, the northwest, of course, had by far the most. Up at Duluth, they had 13.5 inches, and some of the other sections around Poplar, 11 inches, and Spooner had 10 inches. Even close by down in Vernon County at Viroqua, they had 3 inches of snow. We only had a trace. And here's the way the radar is showing things today. Very light, as you can see, is some back over in the UP and some in southern Minnesota. Here's that little shower that we have coming across here right now. But really, we're not going to get inundated by snow, even though it looks like it out there right now. I'll show you the cloud cover, and you can see what's been happening today. Of course, that big comma-shaped cloud going all the way around that low now that's been moving up into Canada since we had this storm start 2 or 3 days ago. And, of course, rain along the Southland, still snow across the eastern lakes because they're going to get this strong wind across there tonight. So a lot of lake effect snow, and we'll be having some through the portions of Wisconsin tonight, but nothing real heavy. Some drifting back through the plains, and we're going to stay windy through the night. Here's our forecast for tonight. Looks like it's going to be cloudy and cold with still some scattered snow flurries. I don't look for any accumulation, really. Overnight low should drop to about 25, and still some strong winds. Then tomorrow, a few flurries, but up to about 34. In other words, not much change except not quite as windy. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy and cold, down to around 19. And actually, I think it should be mainly dry heading through the mid and latter part of the weekend, a little warmer. We should be back into the 40s again by Thursday and Friday. But now we can relax. We've had our first snowfall, even though it's a little bit.
Wow. Back into the mid-40s by Friday again?
Yeah. I saw it line up.
You're just teasing us at this point. It's December coming up.
Still to come, who's heading to the Hall of Fame?
We already know the Badgers belong. Craig reveals their opponent in a bit.
We'd quickly like to recap tonight's top story.
Wisconsin's most notorious serial killer is dead. Jeffrey Dahmer died early this morning, attacked by a fellow inmate while cleaning a prison bathroom. Corrections officials have not released the name of the suspect, but they do say he was convicted back in 1992 for first-degree murder. We'll have more on that, plus reaction from the Reverend who baptized Jeffrey Dahmer earlier this year.
Also later tonight, are you preparing for retirement, and how much will you need to make ends meet? The figures are astounding, and unfortunately, many of us are sorely unprepared for what we will need to retire. Tonight at 10, we will hear some of the cold, hard facts about saving for your golden years, and we will tell you how much you need to be investing each month in your future. Join us for our series, Check Your Figures, tonight at 10.
More than I've been putting away, I think, at this point.
Could be.
It's a lot you need to save. Just ahead in sports, it's the matchup you've been hearing about for the Hall of Fame game.
Craig has that story, plus a Badger who may be 3 better than the rest.
Yeah. Okay, we got to quit arguing now and get right to the sports, Craig.
Yeah, we
You're on.
finally know what's going on January 2nd, so that's good news. It'll be Duke and Wisconsin in the Hall of Fame Bowl, January 2nd in Tampa. Officials had to wait until the Bowl Coalition and the Peach Bowl made their choices ahead of the Hall of Fame. It will be the first ever meeting between the schools in the gridiron. Duke began the season with 7 straight victories before finishing at 8-3. Bill Walsh has called it quits as the Stanford head football coach. He guided the Cardinals their first Pac-10 title in 21 years back in 1992. This year, Walsh's team was only 3-8. His career record is 34-24-1. More news from college football as Madison product Rick Neuheisel is in line for the Colorado head coaching position. A Denver newspaper is reporting Neuheisel and Elliot Uzelak, both CU assistants, are in line to replace Bill McCartney, who is resigning after the team's next bowl game. If you had a chance to watch the Badgers beat Wright State in the season opener Saturday, you saw quite a shooting display by senior guard Andy Kilbride. Although it didn't come until the second half and the Badgers needed it most, Kilbride is more known for his defense, but with his teammates in foul trouble, he hit 5 straight three-pointers to lead the team in scoring.
When he starts thinking about his shooting, then he doesn't play very well at either end. And when Andy shoots well is when he just forgets about that as a focus totally. And his whole focus is at the defensive end and playing hard, and then he starts knocking down shots.
In the first half, I think I was pressing too much. I didn't hit any shots against Marathon Oil, and I think I was thinking about that too much. I came out in the second half and really tried to concentrate on my defense, and that opened things up on offense for me.
Lots of changes to talk about at the AP college basketball poll this week. A new number 1, UMass, who beat Arkansas just last week in the season opener, vaults up to the number 1 spot. Also, as we look at the next, Wisconsin moves up 2 slots from 15 to 13. And Minnesota, who was unranked, slides all the way up to number 15. And how about Indiana dropping out?
How about that?
That's what November is for.
Yeah.
To drop out. We'll check in with Elmer in a minute.
If you see news happening, call the 15 News hotline at 274-1520 or call star 15 airtime free on your Ameritech cellular phone.
Some slipping and sliding going on.
Yeah, let's take a look at the radar. You can see the Dane County and surrounding counties, a little bit of light snow now. It is moving to the east, but in case you're planning to travel tonight, just enough that may make the driving a little bit treacherous, so be careful.
Plenty of people calling in saying they do indeed know that it's slippery. They bumped into the person ahead
Drive
of them.
slowly. Okay? We'll see you tonight at 10 o'clock.
Come on back.